The parable of the vine and the branches. Stop trying so hard. The secret to an abundant life. They wondered how they could bear fruit. And I revealed to them that abundant life is not an effort, but a union with me. The dust of the road was a constant companion, rising in a golden cloud with every step we took. My disciples and I moved from town to town, our days filled with the rhythm of teaching, healing, and traveling. The air was thick with expectation, the eager faces of the crowds a familiar sight. My disciples, a motley crew of fishermen, tax collectors, and zealots, were my closest companions, and they were trying so very hard. I could see the earnestness in their eyes, the deep desire to be good servants, to follow me in all things. They were men of action, accustomed to the tangible results of a long day's work. They knew how to cast a net, how to tally a ledger, how to fight for a cause, and they were now applying that same relentless effort to the kingdom of God. I watched them. They would pray with fervent, strained voices. They would fast with a grim determination. They would argue with the Pharisees with a passion that came from a deep place of conviction. They were constantly striving, constantly seeking to prove their worth, to earn their place in this new kingdom I was building. They saw my miracles and tried to emulate them, to perform their own healings and deliverances. They believed that if they just worked harder, if they just pushed themselves more, they would see the spectacular results they so desperately longed for. Their lives were a series of grand gestures, of public displays of piety, and of private moments of spiritual exhaustion. They believed that the key to abundant life was a kind of spiritual labor, a relentless pursuit of righteousness that was rooted in their own strength. They believed that the more they did, the more they would become. Their days were a blur of activity. They would preach in the market square, their voices hoarse from the effort. They would minister to the sick, their hands trembling from the emotional weight of it all. They would spend hours in prayer, their minds wrestling with the doubts and anxieties that plagued them. They were like a plant that had been uprooted and replanted in new soil, straining to take root, using every last ounce of its energy just to survive. They loved me, I knew that. Their loyalty was unwavering, but their understanding of what it meant to truly follow me was still limited by their worldly experience. They saw the kingdom as a great project, a massive undertaking that required all of their human effort. They saw themselves as the builders, the architects, the engineers of this new reality. They believed that the more they toiled, the greater the harvest would be. They saw the world as a place of brokenness, and they believed their job was to mend it with their own hands, with their own strength, with their own tireless effort. Their ordinary life was a life of striving, a life of relentless work, and in their hearts they were quietly asking, how can we keep this up? When will we be strong enough to do this on our own? The crack began subtly, not with a dramatic failure, but with a growing sense of spiritual exhaustion. The crowds were larger than ever. The demands on us were constant, and the disciples in their earnestness were burning out. I watched as they tried to minister to the people, their faces drawn with fatigue, their voices lacking the energy they once had. They had been trying to do too much, to be everything for everyone, to carry the weight of the world on their own shoulders. And the world was, in turn, crushing them. One day, a man brought his son to them, a boy tormented by a spirit. The disciples, with all their zeal, tried to cast it out. They prayed, they commanded, they rebuked, but nothing happened. The boy still thrashed and cried, and the crowd began to murmur, their faces filled with disappointment. The disciples were humiliated. They were confused. They had seen me cast out 1,000 spirits with a single word. But in this moment, their own power was gone. They had a deep personal connection to me, yet they were utterly powerless in the face of this simple problem. The crack was not a question of their faith in me, but a question of their faith in their own ability. They had come to believe that their power came from their own spiritual exercises, their prayer, their fasting, their earnest efforts. They believed that they had a reserve of spiritual strength, and they had just found out that it was completely empty. They looked at the boy and then at each other and then back at me, their eyes filled with a new kind of doubt. The air that had once been thick with their zealous effort was now heavy with the weight of their failure. The crowd, which had once been so captivated by our miracles, was now filled with a quiet skepticism. Later, in a private moment, they came to me, their heads bowed, their shoulders slumped in defeat. Why could we not cast it out? They asked. The question was not just about the boy, but about a much deeper, more troubling reality. It was a question about their own spiritual inadequacy. They were facing the truth that their power was not their own, but they had not yet understood where it came from. The crack was in the foundation of their understanding of ministry, a widening gap between their relentless striving and the reality of their utter dependence on me. They had been trying to produce fruit on their own, to be the source of their own strength, and the fruit of their labor was nothing but a crushing sense of failure. They had the right heart, the right motive, but the wrong method. And now they were at a crossroads. The confusion and frustration that had been brewing for days finally came to a head. We were walking back from the town, the silence between us heavy with their unspoken defeat. Peter, ever the bold one, finally broke the silence. His voice was low and filled with an honest, painful vulnerability. "Lord," he said, "we have left everything to follow you. We have done everything you asked of us. We have healed the sick. We have taught the people. We have given our lives to this. But we cannot do it. We are not strong enough. How can we continue to serve if we keep failing?" His question was the breaking point. It was a question that laid bare the entire foundation of their belief system. They believed that their spiritual success was a direct result of their human effort, and they had just found out that their human effort was utterly insufficient. I looked at them, at their tired faces, at their hands calloused from the hard work of ministry, and my heart was filled with a deep and tender love for them. They were at a point of spiritual desperation, a place where their pride had been stripped away and all that was left was an honest, painful truth. They were at a place where they could finally hear a truth they had not been ready to hear before. The breaking point was not a dramatic confrontation, but a quiet, agonizing question that opened the door to a profound revelation. They were asking for a new method, a better way to work for the kingdom. They had come to the end of their own strength, and it was in that moment of weakness that they were finally ready to receive true strength. They had been trying to produce fruit by sheer willpower, and now they were utterly exhausted, their spiritual well running dry. Their question was the moment that I had been waiting for. It was a moment of beautiful, necessary humility. They were finally at a point where they were willing to let go of their own efforts and ask for a divine solution. They were ready to shift from being laborers in a field to being branches on a vine. I was about to give them a parable that would not only answer their question, but would redefine the very nature of their purpose for all eternity. The breaking point was not a disaster. It was a divine invitation. It was the moment they stopped trying to build a kingdom for me, and were ready to let me build the kingdom through them. I sat down, gesturing for them to gather around me. The evening was quiet, the air cool and calm. I took a branch from a nearby vine and held it up for them to see. It was green and lush, and a few small unripe grapes clung to it. "I am the true vine," I began, my voice gentle but firm, "and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes that it may bear more fruit." I saw the confusion on their faces, but I continued, "You are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing." The words fell into the quiet night, and they were a direct and powerful answer to the question they had just asked. They were a divine key that would unlock a truth that had been hidden from them. The shift was immediate, a tangible change in their understanding. Their minds, so accustomed to the concept of earning, were now faced with a new reality, a reality of abiding. The branch does not strive to produce fruit. It does not exert effort or try to force the grapes to grow. It simply rests in the vine. It receives the life-giving sap, the nutrients, the very essence of the vine, and the fruit grows effortlessly. This was the shift, a transition from a mindset of strenuous effort to a mindset of simple, restful connection. I was not asking them to work harder. I was asking them to rest in me. I was not asking them to be the source of their own strength. I was telling them to simply remain connected to the source. The spiritual energy they had been so desperately searching for was not something they could generate on their own. It was a divine current that flowed from me to them. The miracle of the vine was not in the branch, but in the union. I explained the concept of pruning too, that sometimes the Father removes things from their lives that seem good, in order to make room for a greater harvest. This was a direct answer to their question about their failures. Their inability to cast out the demon was not a sign of their inadequacy. It was a form of spiritual pruning, a way for the Father to strip away their self-reliance so that they could learn to abide in me. The shift was profound, a total reversal of their understanding. They were no longer laborers in a field but branches on a vine. Their purpose was not to produce fruit but to abide, and in their abiding, the fruit would come naturally, effortlessly, and in great abundance. They had come to me seeking a new method for their ministry, and I had given them a new identity. They were no longer the builders of the kingdom, but the vessels through which the kingdom would be built. The shift was complete, and the weight of their striving began to fall away. The purpose of this parable was to teach them a fundamental truth about the kingdom of God, that life in my kingdom is not about doing, but about being. The abundant life I promised was not a reward for their work, but a direct result of their union with me. I was teaching them that I was not just their teacher, their healer, their Lord, but the very source of their life. Without me, they could do nothing. They could not produce a single spiritual fruit. Every act of kindness, every word of truth, every moment of grace that they would ever offer to the world would come from me, flowing through them. The parable was an invitation to a life of utter dependence on my power, my strength, my grace. This was a lesson in spiritual authenticity. They had been trying to produce fruit out of their own effort, and the fruit had been tainted with pride, with exhaustion, with a quiet sense of inadequacy. But the fruit that came from a life of abiding would be pure, sweet, and life-giving. It would be a fruit that did not come from their own will, but from my very nature flowing through them. The purpose was to show them that a life of service is not about what they can achieve, but about what they can receive. They had to learn to be good receivers before they could be good givers. They had to learn to abide in my presence, to receive my love, to be filled with my spirit, before they could go out and change the world. The parable was also a lesson in rest. The world is constantly demanding that you do more, that you try harder, that you earn your place. But I was teaching them that in my kingdom, the greatest work is done in the greatest moments of rest. A branch does not work to produce fruit. It rests in the vine, and the vine does the work. I was inviting them to a life free from the burden of performance, free from the constant striving for perfection. The purpose was to liberate them from their own efforts and to draw them into a deep, abiding and restful union with me. They were to be rooted in me, and from that place of security, they would produce a harvest that was beyond their wildest dreams. They were to be not just my followers, but a part of me, an extension of my life, my love, my grace. The impact of this parable was profound and lasting. The disciples, who had once been so focused on their own effort, now understood the power of effortless union. They had learned that the secret to a life of abundance was not found in their own strength, but in their deep, abiding connection to me. The parable had given them a new lens through which to see their mission. They were no longer exhausted laborers, but vibrant, living branches. They no longer measured their success by the number of miracles they performed, but by the depth of their union with me. When I saw the hungry, the sick, and the lonely, I showed them that when you feed the hungry and visit the sick, you are doing it for me. I revealed to them that every act of love you pour out is an act of love you pour into me. If this message resonates with your heart, if you feel that stirring to connect with a deeper purpose, please consider becoming part of our community. A simple like and subscription helps this message reach more people who are searching for that connection, just like you were. It's a small act that creates a ripple effect of grace. The parable of the vine and the branches reminds us that we are all part of something greater. Your every act of service, every moment of kindness is a reflection of me and you. By sharing this message, you become an extension of my hands and feet, reaching out to those who feel lost and alone in their striving. So let's work together. Share this message with a friend, a family member, or anyone who needs to be reminded that abundant life is found not in their tireless effort, but in a simple, beautiful union with me. Your action today could be the very thing that helps someone find their way home. In the years to come, after I had ascended to the Father, they would carry this lesson with them. When the crowds were small, when their ministry seemed to be failing, when their words seemed to fall on deaf ears, they would remember the parable of the vine and the branches. They would remember that their job was not to ensure the harvest, but simply to abide. They would remember that the work of the kingdom was not a public spectacle, but a quiet, patient, and persistent work of grace in the hearts of men and women. The parable had given them an abiding hope, a spiritual resilience that would carry them through the most difficult of times. They had come to understand that the greatest miracle was not a storm calmed or a body healed, but the silent, transformative work of a soul resting in the vine, and for all eternity. They would be a testament to the truth that a life of selfless service is not a struggle, but a union. They had been taught that abundant life is not a grand achievement, but a simple, beautiful relationship. They were no longer just my followers. They were a part of me. And in that union, they produced a harvest that changed the world forever. They were a living testament to the truth that a branch can do nothing on its own, but with a life-giving vine, it can change the world. And in their own lives, they found that they had not just given a great harvest, but they had become a great harvest. And that is the true purpose of the vine and the branches. From my heart to yours, my child, I want to share a profound truth with you today. I see the struggle in your life, the relentless striving, and the quiet exhaustion that comes from trying to do everything on your own. You feel the weight of the world, the constant pressure to achieve, to perform, to be strong enough. I see the moments when you've fallen short, the times you felt helpless and alone, and I know the question that lingers in your heart. How can I ever truly succeed? I tell you this not to add to your burden, but to lift it. You are not meant to bear this load on your own. The world will tell you that the secret to abundance is found in your own tireless effort. But I tell you that the abundant life is not a result of your striving, but of your surrender. My love is not something you must earn through your work. It is something you simply receive through your connection with me. I ask you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine a beautiful, lush vine. Now picture yourself as a branch on that vine. A branch does not strain to produce a grape. It simply abides, and the vine provides the life-giving sap that produces the fruit. The fruit is not the result of the branch's effort, but the direct result of its union with the vine. My child, you are that branch and I am that vine. My purpose for you is not to make you a great worker, but to make you a great receiver. I am inviting you to rest in me, to be filled by my spirit, and to let my life flow through you. The fruit you long to bear, the love, the kindness, the peace, it is not something you can manufacture on your own. It is a gift that flows effortlessly when you remain connected to me. So, release the pressure to perform and simply choose to abide. If this message has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. This simple act of sharing helps spread my love to those who are still lost, burdened, and trying to do it all on their own. My child, you do not need to prove your worth to anyone. Your value is not determined by your accomplishments, but by your existence in me. When you are rooted in my love, your life becomes a living testament to my grace. The world will see your peace, your joy, and your kindness, and it will wonder where it comes from. And you will be able to tell them that it is not you, but Christ who lives in you. The fruit of your life will be a living miracle, a testament to the fact that you can do nothing without me, and yet, with me, you can do all things. I am here with you always, in every moment of striving and every moment of rest. Rest in my love today and let me do the work.